Y'all ready? Everybody ready? Good. Good afternoon, everyone. I know some people don't say Happy New Year past the first 5 or 6 days, but I'm going to say it anyhow because it still is the month of January and it is still a new year, and what a year it is. So Happy New Year to everybody. And before we begin this meeting, if we could just take just a moment to be reflective. So many things are happening to so many people, even right here in our own city, and as we pray for our Antioch community right now. If we could just take a moment of silence to honor that. Thank you, everybody. Well, we'll call this meeting to order, and first on our agenda is a roll call. Jessica Dalton.
Present.
Aron Thompson.
Present.
Catherine Hayes Sasser.
Present.
And Gail Carr Williams present. And I feel like really, really super duper odd that I don't turn to my colleague Janet Miller right now and say, Janet Miller. Janet has served our board with such excellence, and she's an exemplary example of what a board member should be and what a citizen of our community and our city should be. I am so grateful for her service to this board and grateful for her service to Nashville. I miss her already, but I'm really going to miss her. And we will celebrate her at a date that all of us can sort of get together and really honor all of her service. Janet, if you're watching, are you watching, Janet? I sort of think she might not be, but she might go watch she might go watch the tape. But if you're watching, Janet, we love you, we miss you, and thank you for all of your service indeed. So with that, I will ask for approval of the December 19, 2024 MTA board minutes.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any additions, deletions, or comments? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have minutes. Next on our agenda is the public comment section. And just a reminder for the public comment section, you will have 2 minutes and there is a clock in front of you. So you'll be able to see your time. And the first comment that I have, the first person I have for comments is Chanel Matthews. If you could just come to the front. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Chanel Matthews. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a 1-year survivor of breast cancer, so I'm a customer of WeGo Transportation. My mother is Joyce Ann Bell. She has multiple sclerosis and has been since 2000. So she's also a customer of WeGo Transportation and has been for about 3 years now. Out of about 42 drivers, we've had 3 drivers. What brings me here today is the last straw that happened last Thursday on the 16th. We've had 3 drivers that have pulled up, told me they're not backing up, and they don't back up and they pull off. That's the issue. That's not fair to the elderly. It's not fair to the city. It's not fair to Nashville, Tennessee. So what happened was we had a ride scheduled, bus number 573, to go to Vanderbilt University Medical Center to my mother's pain management doctor, which you have to go to pain management every 30 days. The ride was scheduled at 1 o'clock. There's no snow. We just went over a snowstorm. There's no snow. My driveway is not a high driveway. There's no cars in the driveway, clear. I make sure that I move all of the cars out of the driveway. When we set this account up by Miss Gail in customer service, they added a comment, please back into the driveway on the manifestation sheet for the drivers. It went all the way up to Cynthia Southall. And I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing anybody's name incorrectly. Okay. These are just pictures that are showing from different angles. This bus pulled up on Thursday with a side lift. My mother had a ride scheduled Wednesday the day before, the same type of bus that pulled up on the side lift. This driver was able to back into the driveway, pull off on time. We were not late. We didn't cause WeGo any issues. So there's no, they pulled up. We had 5 minutes. We were on time. Had no issues. So when Thursday came and the driver told us he's not pulling up, he felt unsafe. He called dispatch. I didn't call for a supervisor. They called my cell phone and said, Chanel, this is WeGo bus dispatch supervisor. Is there an issue on Olsen Lane? I said, yes, sir. The driver is not backing into the driveway, and that's the only way to get my mother out. My mother has multiple sclerosis, which is a disease that breaks down your back and you can tremble. I'm not having my mom wheel down the ramp and cause an issue. The driver stated that he would come in and pull my mom down. You're not doing that. My mom said she does not want a driver touching her. That is a liability issue. I also filed a complaint with the Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division, record number 559515. The complaint with the hub has been issued. It said it's been sent to WeGo. That complaint is 57937. I have also reached out to our District 1, Joy Kimbrough, over Bordeaux. Complaint 3. Complaint 2.
Ms. Matthews, your time has exceeded, but I know you had paper up there that took a little extra time.
Well, I only had 2 other complaints. One was in 2022 where they were supposed to take us to the multiple sclerosis walk. The driver pulled up and did not. I emailed Catherine Ferrara Riggs at Nashville.gov. Her assistant closed our ticket out, and she mailed us 22 bus passes. I cannot keep getting bus passes for things that the drivers are not doing, and our elderly are suffering. Now my mother had 2 doctor's appointments today, one to get a breast exam for spots and another one to go back to pain management.
Okay. So do you mind leaving your pictures so we can look at them and they can become part of our record today?
I don't mind at all, ma'am. Thank you, and I apologize for going over.
Oh, no, you're fine.
If you need me to get these in order because the dates are on the back and they're paper clip, I can do that.
Whichever way you want them to be presented to us, just take your time and hand them to us the way you want it to look for us to review, okay?
Thank you. I apologize for going over, and thank you for your time.
You can give them to me when you have it in order.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming today. Mr. O'Connor, Peter O'Connor. Good afternoon,
Hey,
Mr. O'Connor.
It's been a little while since I've been to a meeting, so I figured it's about time that I get back here and pester you guys again. And
Well, welcome
enjoy
back.
it while I'm doing it. Good to see you again. I moved not too long ago from having been on the 52B route to the 6 route. And so the location where I'm at now requires a little bit of WeGo attention. First off, the 2 stops that I'm at 1427 Lebanon Pike, right across from the Metro Water Department. And right at that intersection, there's 2 stops. Both of them really need shelters, especially when you got some of the elderly people coming from the building where I'm at. When they use the bus system, it's good for them to be able to get out of the elements, like if it's raining, snowing, whatever the case might be. So I'm looking, I've tried to bring it to the attention of customer service, but so far nothing. The other issue is the bus route itself needs to be more frequent and run later. Because there are some people like myself who wanted to get out like New Year's Eve. We couldn't because it quits at 11:15. So anyway, people at MCC, the bus depot, smoking, I'm not seeing anybody doing anything about it. Security walks by them, says nothing. So that was a last minute issue that I figured I'd mention. Anyway, thank you all for your attention. I appreciate that. Good seeing you all again.
Thank you and welcome back. Has everybody had their directions okay today? You found us? Okay, that's really good. Mr. Bull, John Bull. Oh, Mr. Bull.
Good afternoon. I live at 370 Wallace Road, think South Nashville. Want to give a shout out to Mobility Solutions, who are taking up the load on 23B going to the overflow shelter. For example, last night I helped some folks. I'm sort of spotting folks for them. A good 36 people just in one van at separate times. So they're taking some load off 23B, which is really being impacted because the overflow shelter is on that route. If Metro could have more than one overflow shelter, you could spread the wealth, but whatever. Two, quick tickets, Walmart or Walgreens will not process the quick tickets. Whatever. I don't know if that's a South Nashville thing or whatever, but that's reality. And I've seen a lot of training buses out. I hope we have a lot of drivers that handle the activity set up by the half-cent sales tax. Thank you all.
Thank you. Those are the only requests I have for public comments. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Is there anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Hearing no request, that will close the public comment section of our agenda. Next on our agenda are the information only items, and in that we have 4 different items. I'd ask my fellow board members, are there any items that you like to have pulled out for discussion?
Yes, I had one on the monthly financial report.
Okay, so I think Amanda is here, so if you have questions for her, she's prepared to respond to those.
And Amanda, you might plan on covering this when we get down to the actual budget proposal. But one of my questions, notice in there you were talking about some of the trends and things that you're seeing. Are there any that, we don't know about that we should be thinking about that may help us, especially going into the next fiscal year?
Yeah, that's actually a very timely question. Thank you. So we'll talk more during the NICE committee on some of this, but we have a more detailed deep dive that we'd like to have with you over the next few months on some operating revenue impacts that we're seeing from some of our programs that were policy decisions intentionally made by the board, but just something to look at in terms of revenue impacts related to our operating revenue, our passenger fare revenue, and our advertising revenue, which is now community impact partnership revenue. But we have a more detailed look at that during your NICE committee report.
Yeah. I would like to hear more about from Andy Burke about the monthly operating statistics, especially, I attended the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center event with USDOT and the mayor and NDOT and our partners TSU and Vanderbilt. And you mentioned in this little report about the $2 million. Can you tell us what, that overview of the operating statistics and what that money is going to do?
I can absolutely answer that. Thank you for the question. I might actually bring up Dan as he's kind of leading that project. But in terms of this SMART grant, it's basically to help with some of the corridor congestion on Murfreesboro and also Charlotte, which is going to help develop some of the transit signal priority. We already kind of have that project going in Murfreesboro, but this is going to help with addressing some of the video feeds with lights, being able to kind of allow buses to come towards specific traffic lights. It'll trigger the light instead of it staying red, it'll trigger it to go green. So it'll allow our buses to kind of manipulate through the traffic in a way, allowing our buses to kind of get through. I will add also that this is basically a prototype for headway management. So instead of just kind of having your structured times where a bus will be here every 15 minutes, instead we're more looking at a gap where it's every 15 minutes versus just a scheduled time, because we have bus bunching, which often happens during through traffic congestions. So this grant is going to allow for us to kind of just take a look at those different type of technology efforts, from transit signal priority, allowing buses to get through traffic lights, and I hope that kind of answers a little bit, but Dan, if there's anything else I might have missed, I'm happy to kind of let him speak on some of that.
I think that's a good overview, and at some point, if you'd like, we can do a broader discussion of that project.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. I was interested also in what prompted it. I think the first paragraph does a great job of saying, we are seeing increased ridership and also increased traffic, which is causing what you refer to as bus bunching, and how this particular technology is going to help with headway management. So instead of buses coming at 1 p.m. and 1:15 and 1:30 and 1:45,
right.
They may come at, off times, but they're going to be closer to that 15-minute headway instead of just, maybe these two buses coming at 5 minutes apart and then a 20-minute gap for, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what's happening.
Often you'll see, and this is really kind of just to kind of promote the customer experience versus kind of having where you have your scheduled times and you have to be at this particular bus stop at 1:15 to be able to take the bus. Instead, it's okay. If we get to a place where we're doing 10-minute headways, the most amount of time you'd have to wait is 10 minutes for a bus. So the customer may not really care about what time the bus comes as long as they're not waiting an exemplary amount of time. And so this is really a prototype to kind of getting us towards that headway management. And as we are developing out our future budget requests and that kind of stuff, corridor management in terms of our radio room is going to be a big ask in terms of how we manage all the bus bunching like you specified, because it happens pretty regularly where a bus might be traveling down the road on Gallatin and all of a sudden it gets kind of trapped at a red light for 2 cycles. The bus right behind it catches up. And what has to happen is the radio control room has to take a lot of human variable. Basically, hey, I need you to hold up here for a couple minutes, let this bus get past you or whatever. So this type of technology is going to allow the buses to basically get through the traffic lights a little quicker. It's not quite dedicated bus lanes and dedicated transit, but it's a step in the right direction for us to get towards that headway management and improving the customer experience.
And this is on Murfreesboro Pike in Charlotte?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Murfreesboro is one we are doing already, but in Charlotte.
So this particular grant is for Murfreesboro Pike. We actually have a project ongoing on Charlotte Pike through a Federal Highway Administration grant that was awarded to Nashville Department of Transportation to do something similar but a little bit lower scale on Charlotte.
Very cool. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
That's all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions on the information on the items? With that, again, I would encourage everyone to take a look at those. And they do have questions after today. Feel free to reach out to the assigned staff person or Steve. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda item, and it's the approval for the retracting driver protective barriers. Does anyone want to have that removed from the consent agenda for discussion? If not, if I could have a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I will turn this over to you now, Ms. Dalton, for the Operations and Finance Committee.
And I do thank you, Madam Chair. We have an exciting Operations and Finance Committee for you today. So first up, I see an Operations 2024 Special Events Review. Should I skip that and go directly to
You have the MTA Code of Conduct
Code of
revision.
Conduct?
No, special events is first.
Nick is first. I apologize.
Nick is first, Vince.
Vince, I
Today.
cannot wait to hear what you have to say, though. I'm so excited.
Vince is so excited about the code of conduct.
It's
he
so
just
funny.
can't wait.
It's Nick's first time coming to the podium, and so we can make a lot about this, but we won't. Welcome to the podium.
Well, I know we
appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Nick. I know we have a lot of special events in Nashville, so please tell us what you've been working on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. Standing at this podium is a little bit nerve-wracking, and I'm very thankful I don't have to follow Vince, because he's always a tough act to follow. But Yeah, so I'm here and I get to be the spokesman for a lot of really hard work from a lot of people. So this is pretty exciting. And thank you again for letting me do this. The fixed route service operations that we run are really our bread and butter, but we get these opportunities to go above and beyond and really highlight what we're able to provide the community, because Nashville is really an event-driven city. So we want to become that answer of how do we get there for these events that are happening around our city. So special events for this presentation are really the opportunities where we have to adjust service or provide resources, whether they're facilities or buses or operators. But as you can tell, the team's been really busy, and really proud of Gabe Burgess for being the point man for these events, because it takes a lot of coordination. The events themselves vary in size and scope and needs, but the one thing that they all require is collaboration. Collaboration with our internal partners and also collaboration with external partners like the NCVC and the Metro PD are two companies that we work with often. So like I said, there's different types of events, but I'd really like to focus on a few of the operational events that we've done throughout the year. And I'd always like to start at the end, which is New Year's Eve. So in December, we are grateful that you guys allowed us to operate free fares after 6 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and our community really responded with 7,000 people trusting us for their transportation needs after 6 p.m. And that's a big increase versus year over year, 36% to be exact. What I'm even more proud of is the 58% increase in ridership of riders who rode our services after midnight, because that is the time of night when traffic is most congested, other vehicle drivers are most unpredictable, and for those 2,200 people, we got them to their destination safely. During the event, I mentioned collaboration, and a great example of collaboration on this night was working with Metro PD, both outside the Bicentennial Mall and right off of Broadway is 7th and 8th. We operated services between Broadway and the Bicentennial Mall, and we had dedicated loading zones that were offered to us, which allowed us to load and unload our passengers safely and efficiently. And the staging of buses that this prepared for us helped us prepare for the event itself. Following the fireworks, the influx of crowd was a key driver for us to be able to move those passengers efficiently. 4th of July is a similar type of event for our city. We had to support the city in a slightly different way for this event by offering detours around downtown while getting our passengers to the city without contributing to the congestion due to the events. Very proud that our team transported 14,500 people, which is a more modest year-over-year increase versus 2023, but is still an impressive number. And we're very proud of the WeGo Star, which operated at near capacity for this event. And most importantly, again, 0 accidents. 2 other events that I wanted to highlight are really more of ongoing rather than one-time events, and that's through our community impact partnerships. This was our 18th season working with the Tennessee Titans, and through those 18 years, we've been able to do continuous improvement, but there were a couple of improvements this year that really stand out. The first one I'd like to highlight is the free fare system-wide on game days sponsored by the Titans. And the second is the dedicated lanes they offered us outside Nissan Stadium. These resources really came in and impacted in a large way this year, especially with the ongoing construction around the stadium and the reduced parking. System ridership on game days our community responded with a 10% increase versus a normal Sunday. And we transported around 6,000 fans to the stadium. And that's fans that were dropped off right around the stadium. So we're pretty proud of that number. Another organization we've been partnering with is the National Soccer Club. And we offered free fare for routes going to the National Soccer Club on game days and adjusted routes on the 84. What's really impressive and I'm proud about this is most of this was done through our normal fixed route service, which really demonstrates the ability of our service to absorb the changing increase in crowds. And then finally, I'd like to talk about weather events. While not one of the special events that we would normally count, weather events require a lot of the same activities as all the other sporting events. And as we know, just like football and soccer, transit is an outdoor sport. So sometimes we do need to adjust. To do that, our three priorities is we want to minimize risk, we want to minimize the impact to our community, and we want to deliver excellent service. During Winter Storm Cora, while ultimately it didn't hit us as hard as some of the other communities in some of our neighboring states, we did get quite a bit of snow. So we took the proactive approach this year to reduce service to our Saturday schedule rather than waiting for conditions to change and making the changes on the fly. And this had a tremendous impact, both in our ability to communicate early and often, but also in our ability to deliver what we promised to the community. Demand was lower because of so many services being shut down, but we were still able to transport 10,000 passengers with only slightly less on-time performance and a minimal number of missed trips. Very proud of the team for this performance. So 2024 was great, but we want 2025 to be even better. So we're going to continue to look for opportunities to simplify the experience for our passengers and increase the efficiency of the services we offer. As we've gone through the presentation, there's been a few opportunities highlighted, and there's some up here, but this list is by no means exhaustive. We're going to continue to work with our teams internally, but also our community partners to make sure that we're servicing the needs of each particular event in addition to our normal fixed route service. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate that report. And, you know, I just think that what a brilliant way to present our progress and the progress of the staff and the work of those at WeGo to build those relationships with NDOT and MNPD to get those rights of way and places for onboarding and offboarding the passengers safely. I do love seeing those increases in numbers of ridership on those special events, New Year's Eve. I do particularly like your definition of drivers being unpredictable after midnight. I think that could be said of any night in Nashville after midnight, not just New Year's Eve. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing the work that you and your team do for 2025. Any other comments or questions for Nick?
I will say that I personally noticed the communication pieces because I get all of the feeds and the emails. And I think that they were very good about letting people, even if they were not going to access transit, they knew what was happening on the road. So I think it was sort of dual purposeful, and it worked well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nick, I got one quick question for you. On the Nashville SC, you mentioned Murfreesboro. That's the city, right? Not Murfreesboro Pike? Just want to clarify, make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're tracking ridership as it relates to even coming from outside cities during those timeframes?
For the soccer club?
Soccer and football and any other.
Yes, sir. So the 1,200 number quoted in the slide deck here was passengers who rode those three routes that went by the park and got off at those stops. The 6,000 passengers includes WeGo Star and passengers who got off at stops around Nissan Stadium. The 10% increase was system-wide.
Nick, one last thing, you did a great job your first time at the podium.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Nice shout out to Gabe out there too, so.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, great job. No need to worry. All right, Vince.
All right. It's my time.
It is your time to shine. We're going to be looking at the monthly financial budget, financial report compared to budget. No?
No.
That's not it. It
No,
actually
it's-
is the code of conduct revisions. So
But that's the next PowerPoint.
that's the next one. There we go.
There we go.
That's the one.
Hey, I think I'm messing with myself. So, yeah.
You were so eager.
I was.
That's what eagerness to do, raising your hand in the class.
So essentially, I think the board is going to be asked to update or approve this updated language to the code of conduct, yes? And
That
you're going
is
to walk
correct.
us through what those changes are?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, board. So I'm bringing to you item number MA 25004. This is the MTA Code of Conduct. Excuse me. 004. Okay. MTA Code of Conduct revisions. You got. Yeah, you go. All right. Since its inception in 2008, the MTA Code of Conduct has been a useful tool for our efforts to provide a safe, clean, and comfortable environment for our customers who ride our MTA buses and vans, whether it's through our transit center or through any of our facilities. Recently, myself, Nick Odom, our Chief Safety and Security Officer, and our General Counsel of MTA, Ms. Morgan Bim, we reviewed our code of conduct because there was a need to kind of update not only our WeGo logo and bring it up to specifications, but also broaden the language for potential growth in our city and different transit areas, bus stops, and other assets. We updated the code of conduct summary because of the summary served to kind of condense the language that normally is used throughout our enterprise. And also, too, we wanted to look at what is a good public viewing look for our WeGo logo as well. Through the revision process, we changed our code of conduct from the title of MTA Code of Conduct to the WeGo Code of Conduct. And so that was kind of a major change in and of itself. But also there's some other changes that are kind of outlined here as well. We changed MTA throughout the document to WeGo. In the appeals section under CEO, we provided a designee term for that. Additionally, we removed references of Music City Central and MCC due to the change in name of the Elizabeth Duff Center. We updated the code of conduct summary to reflect that there's a need for a ticket, fare, or pass to be on the MTA property in order to board the next available bus. We added no private services. They're on the MTA property without express written consent. And there's a prohibition for e-scooters or e-bikes, which we consider now, based off the language of FTA, shared urban mobility devices. Also, there's added language with requirements and responsibilities of passengers that individuals must cooperate with WeGo officials, security officers, and police officers within the code of conduct summary. Also, I provided to each of you a kind of a summary of those changes, kind of highlighted so you can kind of see where they are. But today, we'd like to recommend that the WeGo staff recommends the board to approve the revisions of the code of conduct that has been presented to you today.
Can I, on the code of conduct summary, item number 1, my teacher mother, I think, is going to be real proud of this. I think the word is supposed to be, is that right? Is it supposed to be are required? It should be are instead of is, right? Can we get that corrected?
Sure, we can.
Right. All persons must have a ticket, fare, or pass in their possession and are required to board
Gotcha.
the next available bus.
We'll correct that as a change, yes.
And then I did have a question, a substantive question.
Sure.
It was just my grammar. So number 3, no consumption of alcoholic beverages or open containers. So you can have alcohol on our property as long as it is in a closed container?
Yeah, a lot of folks, they travel, they may go to a grocery store or something of that nature, and as they're traveling in and out, they we're not sure what's in a package or anything, so they may be traveling away, as long as it's not an open
As long as
container.
it's closed.
Closed, yes.
Okay.
I have a question
Sure.
about the shared urban mobility vehicles. I know it says the riding of bicycles, skateboards, or shared urban mobility vehicles is prohibited. What about, we have, don't they have the ability to put the bikes on the front of the bus or bring in their skateboard when they ride the bus?
Yeah, they can bring them in. What we're looking at is more of safety. A lot of times we have, and Nick can probably add more context to it, he and Michael Moore. But when we were looking at this, the shared mobility devices, the e-bikes, we don't want them to be traveling in and through like the lobby or the corridors around the.
You don't want them to be zipping in and out,
Zipping
right?
in
And
and
use,
out.
I get it. So they can walk them in.
Walk them in. They can put them on the buses and
On the
such as
bus,
well.
yeah.
And we also, I think we have I think we can bring them in on the bus as well. Correct? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
They can put the bicycles on the front of the bus, but on the e-bikes, I think there was some discussion that can they bring those on the bus, and they can.
The scooters, e-scooters and skateboards, I guess, would be on the bus with them.
With the person, yes.
Great. Okay.
I got one more. I think, same on the code of conduct summary, item number 6, the wheeled vehicles, especially when you start naming off what type of wheeled vehicles, maybe there's, or other wheeled vehicles, right? So you don't limit it to just strollers, scooters,
Okay.
bicycles, et cetera.
So make a change.
So,
Other
yeah, just
wheeled vehicles.
adding the other wheeled vehicles or
Sure.
whatever, yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Any further thoughts?
Just one other question. We have a communication plan for this, I'm going to assume.
Yes, we will. Yes, we're going to work with our communications department, and then we'll roll it out and put it out. And then also to our transit stop folks, they will be putting it together and getting all the different spots.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
One more.
Sure.
Number 7 on the summary. Interference with vehicle operations or MTA property is prohibited. Do we need to add our MTA employees to that? Any interference with employees, or is that covered elsewhere?
Number 9.
9 kind of covers that, and in the summary, and it's covered also in the code of conduct under.
Individuals must cooperate with the legal official.
Under the MTA rules, examples, or prohibited conduct, it'll state on page 3 there, individuals shall not interfere with any way with the operation of MTA property, including the WeGo vehicles, nor interfere with the operator's ability to drive safely.
Okay, I just want to make sure our employees are covered and called out. It is called out specifically that they should not be interfered with, touched, assaulted in any way. Maybe something to think about next go round.
I think it would be good to, disorderly conduct and interference can be two different things.
Yes,
So
right.
I
Yes,
think,
and, yeah.
I think that's a good point. So I
Understand.
think we can make, don't you think we can?
Yes.
We can make that change.
Okay.
And we don't have to parse it, but I think maybe we would.
Right.
Would let you know.
I think
let
as a
the board
general
know what it is.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think as a general concept, it would be
I
good to
agree.
call that out specifically
Yes.
so that our employees are clearly
I agree.
protected by the code of conduct.
I agree.
Okay.
It is, I think the summary is extremely important, which I think, if I can say, Vince, was a major driver of the staff wanting to change this. There are certain things, as you can see, that was important, and people read the summary and they're not
Yes.
going to sit there and read. So even though what you're talking about is contained in the policy, I think the summary is hugely important.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I like your suggestions.
Okay.
The summary is what's going to be on the external facing,
Posted in the waiting room and stuff, yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else.
I love knowing that, and that
Yes.
makes me want to double down on our, let's get a specific call out about the safety of our employees in the summary.
To differentiate, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. It is my pleasure as the chair of the Operations Finance Committee to recommend to the board to approve the item number MA 25004 as recommended by staff. Thank you.
And as amended?
As amended.
As amended.
Oh, I second then.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and we have a second, and do we have any further discussion? With no further discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great job, thank you.
All
Motion
right.
carries.
Hang tight, Vince. I think you're also going to be talking to us about the facility use agreement for MTA properties.
Yes, I
This
will.
is pretty exciting. It's a departure for us as an agency.
It is. And so one of the things that, our primary purpose, Metro Transit Authority is, provide efficient connections amongst the community corridors and get folks to and from their recreational, residential areas and places of employment. And so an added benefit is to kind of look at the facilities for some non-transit related uses to kind of help continue to build not only the brand, but also to what these transit areas and these centers are there for the community. It creates goodwill, to really kind of activate these spaces and let the facilities enhance the perception of what WeGo is here in their community. What we're bringing forward is the board is to request to allow the lease of space within and around the transit facilities for both commercial and non-commercial purposes, and as long as it is not violative of our code of conduct. WeGo has worked with our general counsel and also to our insurance liability consultants, Gallagher Risk Management Services. We looked at the risks and determined proper insurance coverages for those uses, and also to looked at the what non-related purposes we could utilize it for. I provided everyone a document, kind of like a draft of what those facility use agreement would kind of look like, with the harmless identification language for MTA and its representatives as well. Currently, under the Regional Transportation Authority of Middle Tennessee, RTA, we use a very similar application, and we've been doing that with several of their facilities and uses as well. This would be a very similar application that we would utilize an agreement for RTA purposes, and we lease those properties between the range of $500 to $2,000 per event, depending on the length of the event and the staff needs for that particular occasion. Further believe that MTA's properties for additional purposes can be enhanced, and the image of transit facilities and normal ridership tourists may mobilize these between the corridors. So our recommendation is that the MTA board provides our chief executive officer the authority to enter into subsequent facility use agreements, like the one in front of you, with outside parties for the use of the MTA transit facilities that involves activities and events on MTA properties for non-transit related purposes. That does not conflict with our transit business operations or code of conduct. Any questions?
In the agreement, the requirement, I love the requirement for insurance, and I love the requirement that a certificate of insurance be provided before the event. Who is responsible for ensuring that we have the certificate of insurance? And if we don't have that mapped out now, I just would like to make sure we do. I have seen the lack of a certificate of insurance and the actual insurance to be an issue in these sort of similar situations. So I just want to make sure we have a good process for ensuring we have that. And if we don't have that, the property is not used by the people that don't have the appropriate insurance?
Yes, we have a good process in that way. Our special events manager, like Gabe and the others, they will get get the certificate of insurance. And additionally, we get the additional insured, where we are additional insured on those policies as well. So, so that any risk that may occur or come out, we at least covered from there.
Yep.
And so, at the end of the day, they have that. They get those first, and then they make sure that it matches everything with the appropriate party that is on record.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you share again when they have to provide you the certificate of insurance? Is it before they sign the
Before.
lease or before the event?
Before the event, they need to provide.
How much time before the event?
It's like 15 days before the event, and let me make sure with Mr.
Burgess.
Mr. Burgess.
Yes, ma'am, about 15 days. Usually, they fill out an application first, part of the application process.
You have to come to the mic. Welcome to the mic.
Part of the application process is that they fill out the special event form, which is I send to them, or they can go to our WeGo public transit website. Once I get that and verify the information, then the request is sent up to Vince. Once I put the contract together, prior to that, they'll send me the COI, because that takes a couple of days to get from their insurance companies. Once I receive that in my hand, and then once Vince has approved the agreement, then I put the packet together. Okay. The sponsor signs it first, and then it comes back, and then it goes to all the chiefs for their signature. And in the packet for the chiefs is the letter for Vince, the COI, and the contract signed by the sponsor. And at that time, it could be either approved or disapproved by any of the chiefs.
Great. Just want to make certain you have enough time
Yes, ma'am.
with the certificate of insurance.
All right. Any other thoughts, comments?
Question, on page number 2, the third bullet point, WeGo has a right to terminate agreement with any time within 15 days written notice to leasee. Written notice always can be weird, and so just, if it's clarified whether or not it's just written or electronic or whatever else may be good clarification.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And to the point of the 15 days certificate of insurance, did you want to put that language in that bullet point, Gail? It doesn't say 15 days. It just says prior to the event.
And yes, I think a more specific date.
So a
would
copy
be
of the
important.
certificate of insurance must be provided at least 15 days prior to the event. Can we amend it to that?
Sure, we can.
Okay. So that's 2 amendments, yeah?
Now, I think the notice is taken care of, Aaron, on the first page, right there at the top. For notices, additional logistical, the following should be contacted. So it tells how to who to contact and when,
Okay.
and the email too. So that should take care of that.
So an email would suffice as in writing, okay.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
2 more. One was, second paragraph on the front, it's got located at twice in there. This agreement is for a leasee to lease transit facility located at, so,
Gotcha.
yeah.
We'll correct that.
And then question is, who signs off on the lease agreement?
These are lease agreements. Once they come back from Gabe, I'll review them, make sure everything is correct, and then Steve will sign off on our CEO, Steve Bland.
Any other ways to improve? Okay. The operations and finance, yes.
Well, the only thing I would highlight, well, it sounds like a new thing. We've been doing this with the RTA for probably 15 years, Gabe, because we pretty routinely rent out train stations.
He said 18 years.
So far, so good.
Excellent. The Operations and Finance Committee makes a motion to approve M-A-25-005 as amended by this discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dolphin. There is a motion. If there's a second.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You have the ability to do this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Great work. Madam Chair, it is my pleasure to hand this meeting back over to you.
Well, thank you very much. What a great report today. A lot of work being done. So next, how we get to talk about this financially, I will turn this over to Mr. Thompson for New Initiatives and Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The NICE Committee, the New Initiatives and Community Engagement Committee, wants to present the MTA budget proposal to Metro Finance. And Amanda, take it away.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'd love to take this opportunity to start our discussion on the next fiscal year. So your question earlier was very timely. We'll talk a little bit about our budget process, which really has kicked off as of November, December last year. We started initial discussions internally. Right on time, we got a call for operating budget submissions on January 13th last week. Our deadline for due date for the 2026 fiscal year is February 7th, so very, very soon, in a few weeks. And with that timing, we only are given really this board meeting to talk with you about it before those submissions go in. Over the next few months, we'll know a little bit more about that submission and the request, and we'll be coming back to you doing some deep dives on a few of the areas that we'll talk about more in the next few slides, with a final June approval of the board by the board of the operating budget in late June. So we're going to follow, I know with Choose How You Move passage, there is going to be some changes to the way we do things, but really we're going to follow the same process that we always have at the high level, where there's a baseline request, which is our status quo. What do we need to operate our existing services next year? And then there's on top of that an investment request, and that investment request includes any new or expanded initiatives, and now it will include Choose How You Move. So that is kind of the change there. There's a new dedicated funding stream that will be funding our investment requests through Metro. So this will be our first year where we submit our initial requests. I'll start with the baseline request, so to operate our existing service. So we begin building by looking at what we were given last year or this fiscal year, which was $77.3659 million to continue our existing operations. We are projecting an increase above that of $11.3 million, and that includes three different buckets. One's inflation. The next is operating revenue impacts, which I alluded to earlier in the answer to that question. And then the third is continuing service improvements that were initiated a few fiscal years ago. And I'll give you a little bit of information in each of those areas in the next few slides. So in total, we're looking at an overall baseline request of $88,665,900. So $88.66 million in baseline requested funding to Metro. So I'll talk about those three a little bit more now. So the first is the service improvements that were implemented 2 fiscal years ago. So in fiscal year 2024, we implemented new services related to the opening, the most recent opening of the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center. So several different improvements, a new crosstown route. And when we talked with Metro about funding those services, at the time, it was agreed to that we would temporarily fund those services with our available federal pandemic relief funds, and that they would then fund those services in the future. And we are now in that future where the pandemic relief funds are going to be fully expended as of this fiscal year. So that's no longer an option to continue these services next fiscal year. So we are asking for $4 million associated with continuing those services today. So just to show you graphically what that looked like, last year we requested $81.2 million, but we were only given $77.365. That's about $4 million if you add inflation, so that's where we're getting that number. So that's that piece. The next is inflation and growth. Just like the rest of the world and the country, we are coming out of a rapid growth period. Things are cooling, which is great when we are looking to step into an expansion mode. So we are forecasting right now, based on that cooling, about 4% in general inflation, 4% wage increases aligning with the CBA that was signed last year. At the same time as our growth is growing, our costs are growing at 4%, we have limited growth on our operating revenue side, which is the next slide I'll talk about. And that's based on what we've been seeing historically. So we have some growth in our requests related to that. We also have additional expenditures related to our existing services, our baseline services. We've talked about that as a board, security, access on demand services, so additional costs to still deliver that same service. So overall, that growth and the inflation, that area is about a little under $5 million in our additional ask. Operating revenue impacts is our final bucket of additional asks, so of baseline additions. So over the past 5 years, we've seen a pretty significant drop in our overall average passenger revenue per trip. So from a little over $1 per trip to now less than 80 cents per trip. So that reduction, 24%, was driven primarily, we talked as a board about fare capping and the decision to implement fare capping, but there's also 3 other programs that we'd like to dive into deeper, which is the We Go Ride program, the social services subsidy programs, and the community impact partnership program. Each of those have a revenue impact as well. Overall, if you combine the 4 of those together, we're equating that to about $2.4 million in additional baseline funding related to the implementation and the continuation of those programs.
Is there any way, the $2.4 million between those 4 policy decisions, is there a way to get a breakout so we could understand, for instance, how much the community impact partnerships are of the 2.4, the We Go Ride? Okay.
Yes, I think it'd be really helpful for us to look at each of those individually and look at the impacts, because each of them have a different story.
Yes.
Based on history and what we're seeing right now. So the answer is yes. I don't have those here today, but it's something I think we should look into in the next few months as we develop the detailed budget.
I think that's an excellent idea. And then maybe an assessment or discussion of, is the benefit of the policy decisions we've made commensurate with the impact that it is having financially, and how do we see that going forward, and are there adjustments we need to make? I think
Absolutely.
That would be a worthy discussion.
Great. Any other questions before I go through? I have a high level look at the 3 programs here, but I do agree it'd be helpful to dive deeper with you all. So the We Go Ride program back in 2018, many of you are familiar with the history there, that it had really been stagnated, and there wasn't a lot of interest from new partners. We had about 20 partners. In 2019, we revamped the program into the We Go Ride program from what was called the Easy Ride program. We grew over that time period from 20 partners to 53 partners. We went from 9% of our total ridership to now 16% of our total ridership with that program. So it's really, those numbers are really strong in terms of interest in the program and excitement around the program. But that does have a revenue impact, a pretty significant revenue impact, because at the same time, we are now looking at a cost per ride for that program average at about 80 cents per ride, when our full adult fare is $2. So pretty significant discount provided to that program. And the discounts are also, they vary widely between the partners. So it warrants looking further into it. Our request also in this program includes the continuation of HBCU funding beyond this year, because that funding source will be fully depleted as of this fiscal year as well. So something to note. The next program, which is very relevant right now because it has been very cold recently, is the Social Services Subsidy Program. So that includes the cold weather cards and the connector card programs that we provide at full cost with no accompanying income. One thing that we've seen at the beginning when this was first implemented, there was lower usage, but now as of this year, we're looking at 2.5 times the usage of these programs, which has had a pretty significant impact on our passenger fare revenue per use. So we're looking at over 600,000 rides being used through both of these programs combined this last fiscal year. And I'll say we are already right now advancing more cards because we've gone through our first 5,000 this week. So it continues to skyrocket, and that does have a revenue impact to it. Community impact partnerships as well. I will say not as much of a top line revenue impact, because at the height of our advertising program, we were about 1% of our operating budget. So a very, very small piece of our operating budget, $1 million, around there. And so the Community Impact Partnership Program has been so far very successful. We have 3 early partners who have, instead of providing straight revenue, we're seeing other types of benefits associated with the program. So our advertising revenue line item has, pretty much drifted off to 0, which is expected with this program. We do hope that it starts trending upwards slightly higher than that, but it's never going to reach a traditional advertising program. And I think that's the intent of the policy. So just something to mention as we continue to see that program ramp up, that there is revenue impacts associated with the program that are a bit smaller than the WeGo ride. Okay. And did you have any questions on those before we move into the exciting investment requests? No? Okay. So the investment requests, which this is kind of where it gets to the new stuff, not just new requests, but also a new way of doing things a bit. You'll see 2 different requests. They're envisioning right now an interim request where we would put forward funding for this fiscal year and kick off some things that we can do, small things that we can do with the beginnings of the revenue that will be kicking in next week. Next week they start collecting it. And then we'd go for our traditional request in 2026. So there's potentially 2 tranches of requests. So you'll see that divided here. The first in our initial request, because Choose How You Move put forward something new to MTA. So I'm introducing that to you today, this operating reserve. In Choose How You Move, they fully funded it as one of their higher cost initiatives in the first year. It's a way to provide more financial stability to the agency as we're expanding service. And it gives you that opportunity as a board to be able to reach, without anybody outside, to be able to reach funds if something were to happen, if another pandemic were to hit, if we had unexpected costs go up or revenue go down, we'd be able to access this reserve through the board. Something that you don't have today, but something that we see around the country as a best practice, especially for agencies as they continue to grow and mature and operate more service. A dip in revenue can be pretty significant, and in the short term, you'd have an ability to adjust while you figured out a long-term solution. So as part of the Choose How You Move program, they put forward an initial funding of around $40 million that would sit in a reserve in our books, and we would be able to invest that like RTA does as a new revenue stream for us, and it also would be available for uses when and if things happen in the future that are unforeseen. We'll come back to you and talk more about that in the next month or so, talk about potentially a board policy associated with it. And we are in talks right now with Metro Finance on what that will look like and what they're envisioning as well. So more to come.
I would love when we do that to, you mentioned best practices and other agencies do this. I think understanding what similar sized agencies do as far as governing when the reserve can be tapped by whom, how often.
Yes.
It would be great to know what others are doing as we're asked to sort of shape that policy, given the sizable amount of the reserve.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll bring that to you, planning next meeting. So that's an initial funding in this first fiscal year, or in this fiscal year, the one we're currently in, so 24-25. On top of that, we are also putting forward some reduced federal capital reliance. I'll explain that more in a minute. 3.5 million there. And then some initial investments, some of the things that we think we can do today to get us ready for the full fiscal year next year. So in total, that's 46.2 million in additional investments that we'd be requesting as part of this current fiscal year. Our next fiscal year, which is the topic of today, is we would also have this annual funding that would plus us up in our reserve to target, in the Choose How You Move program, they said 30%. So 30% of our operating budget would be in this reserve, and they'd be funding it through this dedicated funding stream. $7 million for this reduced federal capital reliance, and then $30 million for Choose How You Move expansion. We'll define that in a few slides after this. In total, that's $47.1 million. You combine the two together, and we're looking at $93.3 million as our request to Metro and investments for Choose How You Move. Any questions on that before I go through in the detail of the three categories? Nope. Okay. So expansion initiatives. You'll see over the next few months, we're going to be working through 5 different key categories of Choose How You Move expansion. And we've already been working internally with several, and I believe you've heard a lot already on the first, which is system safety and security. We're going to look at appearance of physical assets, so image and appearance, service quality and reliability, really key to the Choose How You Move program, capital program delivery readiness, and then direct service expansion. So those are the core areas that we're going to be looking at and how we put forward initiatives both in this fiscal year and next fiscal year for Choose How You Move. Immediately, that $2.5 million number I talked about, we're looking at a high level at security enhancements, recruitment and retention, access on demand expansion, because that's something we can do without any fleet purchases, additional WeGo link zones, something we can do pretty quickly, and the low income fare subsidy program. Of note, the low income fare subsidy program will provide a funding source for some of those revenue impacts I just talked about a moment ago on the baseline side. So as that's ramped up, we'll hopefully have some relief on those pieces moving forward. And then in the first year, we'd look at an expansion of all of those above items, so a full year of funding for all of that, and then starting with our partial year of fixed route service improvements. There's going to be a lot more to come on these areas, but that's just a high-level look. Okay, so I said I would talk about the federal capital reliance. So for many years...
Quick question, Amanda. If you go back one
Sure.
slide, and when we're looking at that immediate $2.5 million, I know all of them are priorities, but is there a ranking system of priorities of those?
Yes, actually, we just put that together. Steve, do you want to?
Sure. The quick turn items are a lot of the security issues that we've talked about through the Marine Tiger work that's ongoing short term. And actually next month, Nick will be coming back to the board, with our recommended new contracted security contract and some backdrop to some of the changes in approach, which will require additional investment prior to the start of the fiscal year. And then the other one, Amanda touched on in the financial statement, impacts of our labor shortages, notably overtime contracted service. So it'll really be as quick as we can, doubling down on our recruiting and training efforts and employee retention efforts. And that's both hitting that service quality and reliability issue, being able to sustain the services we have, trying to minimize overtime, reduce our level of reliance on outside contractors. It's also positioning us for that fixed route service expansion. So even without adding buses to the fleet, first rounds of fixed route service expansion we're looking at. And Peter, welcome back. But one of the items is off-peak frequency improvements, including on the number 6 Lebanon Pike bus, several other routes, evening, weekend types of improvements, which won't require any additional fleet, but will require additional operating staff.
And just to note, this is just operating. So there's capital priorities as well, and they're going to be happening at the same time, but this focus is just on the operating side. So anything else on that before we move forward? No? Okay. The reduced federal capital reliance, I think many of you have heard this before, that we have been allocating our federal 5307 formula funds toward allowable uses for preventative maintenance and ADA paratransit. It's great that we can do that. It's nice to have that flexibility, but best practice, especially as we look forward to expansion mode, is to move that back over to where it is intended, which is to invest more in our state of good repair. So that needs to move to the capital side. We're hoping that we can begin doing that as soon as we can with this new dedicated funding source, because it not only helps us create a good foundation as we expand, but it also helps us unlock more state dollars that we're currently not able to access. So we're estimating about $1.3 million could be accessed by shifting over back to capital. And it also helps relieve some of the pressure of our baseline capital requests that we'll still need to make for existing fleet and facilities under the baseline capital side. So we're putting forward $3.5 million in the first initial request, and then $3.5 million, so that'll total $7 million, which gets us well along the way to us hopefully reducing and eliminating that practice as we expand, we go. Any questions on that? No?
I'm sorry. Is the state funding, is that matching dollars, or are those grants or matching dollars?
It's matching dollars, which we can't access on the operating side.
A typical federally funded capital project is 80% federal, 10% state, 10% local. And TDOT kind of automatically matches our formula capital program. But when we move it into the operating budget, TDOT does not participate in that. What I point out on the graphs Amanda has there, one of the reasons we've been able to have a pretty aggressive capital program over the last couple of years, finishing out North Nashville, bringing Donaldson, starting to move the Donaldson project, moving the Antioch project. In large part, that's because those pandemic relief funds hitting the operating budget for 2+ years freed up those formula monies to be doing what she's talking about doing. So for fiscal 22 and fiscal 23, essentially we had access to all of those capital funds for all of the federal formula funds for the capital program.
Well, that's a good point.
But that goes away this year.
Exactly. That's a good point. It seems to be a trend in several different of the categories that we've talked about, that this is the first fiscal year and first request where we're done with COVID relief funds. They're gone. And so they temporarily allowed us to do certain things. And now we got to chart a path forward and make good decisions on day one of no COVID relief funds. So, okay. Did you have a question, or did he answer that? Okay, good. Operating reserve. So this is my last key slide. And again, you will hear more about this next meeting. In the Choose How You Move program, they put forward a requirement that 30% of our operating costs would be put in this reserve. This reserve would be held at MTA. We would be able to invest it like RTA does currently. We're right now exploring what a potential reserve policy would look like, and we'll be talking with you about that further. It does align with best practices for accountants and Government Finance Officer Association. One of the big things for the program when it was put together is they wanted to, I'm saying this because I also put it together, but we wanted to increase our competitiveness for the FDA Capital Investment Grant Program, which is $800 million in potential funding that we would be receiving from the federal government for the major capital projects, the bus rapid transit projects that are put forward. To do that, to increase our federal competitiveness for that program, we need to have available funds if costs go up available to us. So this is something that you point to and say, we've got it, give us a good rating on our financial commitment. And so this can make a big difference in your rating. It also helps us as a board, as an agency, to avoid any very disruptive service disruptions if something happens in the short term while we determine how to fund it in the long term. So I'll summarize with our budget appropriations request in table format. So 88.665 million in baseline and 93.3 million in investment, and open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Amanda, for your presentation. Are there any questions?
I just really appreciated the clarity of the presentation. This is the first time I've sort of gone through this process, I feel like, maybe. Anyway, I thought it was very helpful.
It's a little different this year.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot
It's
of
nice.
numbers, a lot of big numbers. So I appreciate the detail, and then also the forthcoming follow-up on some of the issues we talked about, sort of taking a deep dive into to make sure we're doing the right thing with
Yes.
all of this increased funding.
Thank you.
Amanda, does it mean that you're going with the investment appropriations request, it will be the 88.6 plus the 93.3?
That's right.
And that will be,
That would be our new budget, our new operating budget request, yes. Though I guess I should caveat that the 46.2 would go on top of this fiscal year, and the 47.1 will be next fiscal year. So it would really be 47.1 plus 88.667 for next fiscal year, and then we'd add this to the 70s. I'm getting complicated, sorry. Adding the 46.2 to the 77.6, yeah. So it'd be divided.
We'll make sure you get a copy of whatever we send them.
I just want to echo the other sentiments about this was a great report and a great way for us to think about it. It's the first time we've had to think about it in terms of now that we have the extra dollars available and how we think about it, but also want to congratulate all of you for being such good stewards of the pandemic dollars. I think that we were able to leverage things, and I think we were very good stewards for our city. And I think that reward should come for such good stewardship, and great job on that piece.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And Margaret, this is not a voting item, is it? Okay, all right. Just checking to make sure.
You'll get to do that in June.
More to come.
Amanda, I think you did a great job. I'm sorry, I'm still processing. My brain, I'm a slow internal processor. So tomorrow afternoon on my drive home, I will have all these questions for you. But there's so much to process here in terms of, going through all of the COVID funding, which we were excellent stewards of, and, thanks to the great leadership at WeGo and staff. But looking at the impacts that our policies are having on our operational revenue sources, but also looking at becoming that bigger agency by putting together the 40.2 million operating revenue reserve. I just think that there's so much going on in your report. It's both intimidating and inspirational at the same time, right? I can't imagine what the staff is going through right now on that side. So kudos to you all for what you do, and this is going to be quite a year, the beginning of quite a few years, right? I mean, this is just the beginning. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you very much. What an insightful report. Thank you very much. Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Of course, all of Amanda's discussion, or most of it, would not have been possible if this didn't happen. On January 13th, Judge Martin of the Chancery Court of Davidson County ruled in favor of the Metropolitan government in a lawsuit challenging the legality of the Choose How You Move Transit Improvement Program. So her decision clears the way for collection of the half-cent sales tax. Those collections will begin on February 1st. Metro Finance will hold those funds in separate accounting. And we were continuing to work with the Mayor's Office, Metro Planning, Metro Finance, NDOT on their process for actually allocating those funds, accounting for those funds, and reporting out our progress in delivering Mayor O'Connell's promises to the community. As you've heard in Amanda's proposal, yes, there's been a considerable amount of time put in on putting together our FY 25-26 operating budget proposal. I want to commend Amanda and Shelley and Janet and the finance staff in particular. I'm not sure that the other department heads will join me in that because they have had a lot more work to do this year in putting together their budget proposals, both baseline and investment. But I think it's really been a great approach to engaging our full staff in the finances of the authority. So we are fully confident we will more than meet Metro's deadline of February 7th. Next, I want to thank, kudos, great job, welcome Nick Pachenka to the presentation realm. I also enjoyed his presentation both in format and in content. I think too many times we take for granted, we think, okay, every day we pretty much do the same thing. Buses roll out at the same time. But Nick highlighted 189 special events from the very, very small really to the very, very large, and even in addition to the special events when we have a few wrinkles, thrown into the suit with things like the winter storm. So tremendous job. I would also, with respect to the winter storm, I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the hard work of NDOT, Diana Alarcon and her staff. I know just driving around, I thought they did a tremendous job in terms of particularly our main streets, but really citywide, doing a good job pre-treating and treating the streets. I don't see Zita here. I don't know if Zita's here, but if someone would get the word to her, I think we need to start ordering T-shirts or coffee mugs marked with a new term that I'll be using very often. Transit is an outdoor sport. So Nick, I thank you for coining that phrase, and I will be stealing it and using it liberally in my presentations. As Amanda alluded to, we're continuing to advance several other key initiatives related to Choose How You Move and our capital plan. She just hit you with the operating budget side for right now. We'll be hitting you with the capital budget side. Debbie's group is hard at work right now. We are actually in solicitations. We have a request for information out to the consulting community to start advanced planning on the Murfreesboro Pike All Access Corridor towards some form of high capacity transit. Debbie's group is also out for proposals for overall program management services. So consultant support to help Lydia and her group to really track what should be, a significantly expanded capital program portfolio in the coming years. You'll recall on Murfreesboro Pike, we're comfortable advancing this because before he left office, Mayor Cooper gave us a significant allocation of funds to start the planning and programming of that activity. So even in advance of Metro's appropriation of funds toward Choose How You Move, we do have some resources available for that. You heard Andy allude to on January 15th, we were pleased to join Mayor O'Connell and Robert Hampshire. Robert is was the Chief Science Officer with the United States Department of Transportation to announce a couple of their SMART grants. One was our grant for the Murfreesboro Pike Corridor that Dan described, and also a larger Phase 2 grant that NDOT's been able to get to expand deployment of LiDAR technology to enhance particularly pedestrian, but really overall safety on the streets in Nashville. And one of the early deployments of that technology has been adjacent to the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center. We put in a mid-block crossing with a pedestrian signal using the LiDAR technology. So that was a great location, again, to showcase that technology. Felix's group continues to advance work on the update to our in-motion strategic service plan. Right now, working with Kimberly Horn and Nelson Nygaard, They are producing a state of the system report as well as market assessments that will help us with some of the alternatives analysis. You can expect to be hearing from Felix and that group certainly over the course of the year. Continue to be moving forward on 3 new transit center projects, working with Metro Nashville at Antioch on some ground level design concepts so that we can begin to advance that project in earnest. Continue to work with H.G. Hill and Southeast Venture at Donaldson Station. We're currently awaiting our federal environmental decision to move into the design phase for that project, and also continue to work with Holiday Properties in conjunction with their Artist Loft project on Upper Dickerson Pike. I would like to join Gail's comments to formally, on behalf of myself and the staff, thank Janet for her service on the board. She was here for most of my tenure. I think she might have come in my 2nd or 3rd year, Gail. And apart from, Gail touched on her involvement with the board, her leadership on the board, I can tell you I leaned on her an awful lot, as I do with all of you, for advice, counsel, recommendations, and general thought leadership in between meetings. So I think what a lot of folks who come to our meetings don't realize is the work you all put in between when I call you for help. None of you have ever turned me down yet. I might test the boundaries of that as we move on into the future. So I always like to close the MTA side with good news. This is good news, bad news, but mostly good news. I learned earlier today, Felicia Ransom, where are you? Stand up, Felicia, and be recognized. So you all have seen Felicia before. She is MC extraordinaire over our WeGo Academy graduations. It's an event never to be missed. Whenever it's on my calendar, it's the highlight of my month. And really, she is really one of the founding members with Kim Tucker, who recently retired, of WeGo Academy. Does an incredible job. Well, short-term bad news. Felicia's going to be leaving us at the end of February. But good news, mostly good news for her, also good news for our region. She is taking a role as safety and training manager for the Clarksville Transit System. So the city of Clarksville and Montgomery County are our partners on the RTA side in delivering service. So I will publicly say to Mayor Joseph Pitts of Clarksville, Mike Ringenberg, the director of CTS, you made an incredibly good decision. It's at our expense in the short term. But Felicia also works with an incredible team, and I have no doubt that Mornay Bota, Vince, and our folks over in training will step up into the leadership role. Felicia, you have an open invitation to come back and MC those WeGo Academy graduations and hand out the hardware. So congratulations. I can't think of anybody who deserves that success more than you. And who knows, when Nick moves on to bigger and better things at some point in his career, maybe we bring you back into the fold. But in the meantime, we will look forward to working with you as a regional partner up at CTS. So Felicia, thank you so much for everything you've done. Are we able to squeeze another graduation or two out of you before? Okay, awesome. Finally, just a couple quick updates on RTA items. We've had really good collaboration with TDOT and their public-private partnership side on the choice lane deployments that they're looking at in the Southeast Corridor on I-24 to Rutherford County. They have specifically engaged CDM Smith to work with us on how we can better leverage that asset for public transportation use in the future. I would also announce that in January, the RTA board re-elected their prior officers, so we'll continue to be working with Mayor Randall Hutto of Wilson County as chair, Mayor Paige Brown of Gallatin as City of Gallatin as vice chair, and Ed Cole, who is Davidson County's governor's appointee, as secretary. So that's been a very strong and stable group. And unless there are any questions, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Any questions for Steve? Great report as always, Steve. Thank you very much. Felicia, congratulations. That's exciting for you.
And Clarksville.
No, we're so happy for you and happy for Clarksville, and I just think you're just going to be amazing. But I echo Steve. You can come back and do our graduation anytime, as long as you don't take our people back home to Clarksville. If you think that might happen, it's okay. But congratulations, that's wonderful. And board members, just remember we're going to celebrate Janet. And I just echo so many sentiments. We had a great meeting today. The future is so bright for us, and it's bright for a lot of reasons, mostly this team out here. And I want to say, I'm like a lot of other people. Maybe I shouldn't admit it publicly, but I scroll sometimes. Y'all scroll? You scroll? I was scrolling one day, and I saw Andy Burke. Yeah, Andy. I don't even follow you, but like you on. Oh, I don't know. But it was something like so incredibly positive, and it was very. It was a testament to how you all are working together, and you were scrolling, and you were doing like PowerPoint, MTA, We Go PowerPoint presentations where people could come into the room and practice their PowerPoint presentations. But what I saw in the video beyond just, that's how they figure those out. That's so cool. But what I just saw this incredible teamwork. And I saw this incredible community of you all having fun and doing the work that you were doing. And it seems like everybody was helping each other be better. And so there is some payoff in scrolling, even when you think like it is sucking all your time away from you. But there are things that pop up that give you joy. And so I was quite happy to sort of see. So when Steve was talking about for this budget, how everybody was working together, having to work harder, I can sort of see when you do things like that, that teamwork pays off. And it pays off as we saw Amanda's first budget presentation. It pays off when we see how we change our code of conduct to really be relevant and consistent with where we are today. And it pays off when we think about how we're going to sort of use our facilities in ways that we engage our community in the most meaningful ways, and how Gabe can sort of engage with these things. So while scrolling seems a little, why am I doing this? It does indeed pay off. So any of y'all are having some guilt about scrolling, you'll find one that really makes you smile, and you'll see progress in that. So good job, Andy. Well done. And team, well done. And Happy New Year, everybody. Anybody else got anything else? Anybody else want to talk about their scrolling? Now I've embarrassed myself to no end. But anyhow, to all of you, thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned. Do we have anything else, Margaret? Okay. Just want to make certain. Okay. With that, we are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro.
Well, it was funny
Network.
how I scrolled.
If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.